Welcome back to the Meeple Marathon, everybody, and our continued coverage of Terraforming Mars, the Ares Expedition. This is the Kickstarter version of the game, so you're going to see some upgrades from if you have the retail version, but for the most part, setup and certainly gameplay are going to play exactly the same. Now, setup is almost non-existent if you have these particular trays that came with the Kickstarter. They're really nice. I personally have just gone ahead and put all of my resource cubes into one, and then my greenery cubes and my ocean tiles in the other. That's just personal preference. If you're playing multiplayer, you may want to split up your resource cubes and just keep these in a baggie, but otherwise, basically you're getting these out, and then you want to find your two clear cubes. I'm keeping mine in here, but they're going to go on the bottom two spots of the oxygen and temperature track. Then you need to find one of your cubes in your color and put it on the 5. And then the last thing we're going to do over here in particular is take our ocean tiles. We're just going to give them a nice good shuffle here, and then place them out randomly onto the board. Technically, it doesn't matter whether they're upside down, sideways, or backwards. I just like them to all look nice. All right. So we've got all of our ocean tiles set up. This stuff is just ready for us to go. All right, so whether you have one of the play mats from the Kickstarter or not, if you don't, you simply just want to put one of your player boards out, and then you're going to take a single cube of your color and put it in the 0 space of each one of these tracks here, including these two at the bottom. All right, and so blue, I'm player blue, but your colored cubes are going to be what fills in all of these tracks on the left and on the bottom. What goes in these 3 areas here are going to be your resource counters. Essentially, this is a single, a 5, and a 10. That's all they're really there for. The next thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to make sure you have a deck of phase cards, so 1 of each, so 1 through 5. Just make sure you have these. And then you're going to want to make sure you choose a corporation. So you're going to deal 2 to each player. If you're playing solo, you just deal 2 to yourself. And then technically you can see your cards first. I'm not going to go through the whole picking of which one, but let's just say for now, for example, we will, start with this one. It really doesn't matter. And so what this one here is telling us, this is going to give you your starting resources. Usually it's just mega credits or money. But in this case, this one also is going to give you 1 heat production to start the game off with. So what I can go ahead and do is move this, boom, right there. That means during the production phase, I will get a single heat added into my thing. And I'm also going to start with 45 MC. So I can pick, and that's a pretty hefty number there. I can pick these out however I want, as long as my grand total all adds up to 45. So this is 10, 20, 30, 35, 40, 45. This bottom part here is essentially a special effect that I get when I play certain cards. We'll talk more about those later. This is just set up at this point. The last thing you want to do is make sure, obviously, you have a stack of cards ready to go. Personally, this is just half the stack. As a solo player, I'm not even going to come close to even probably going through this. And then each player is going to get 8 cards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right. So that's pretty much the setup that you can keep up with whether you're playing multiplayer or solo. The only other things that we're going to add in or make different in a way for the solo game is that we need to have 1 tracker down here. Now they tell you to find a cube from any player color that's not being used. That's completely not necessary. I simply just use one of these resource cubes over here. It can be any one of these. You're just simply moving it slowly across this bottom portion of the TR track here. And technically, the instruction manual tells you to get a second set of phase cards out for the AI player. That's really the only thing the AI player does, is they are also choosing a particular phase that you get to do as well, and we'll cover what happens in those phases here in a minute. Because it wouldn't be possible for you to make it through a solo game without being able to do, hopefully, kind of two things each round. But one of the things that the game comes with are these cardboard phase tokens. You're supposed to line these up right here like so. And then as you can see that I've tucked the board here so I can't even get the fifth one in here. But as you draw cards or you flip over, in the game, each person's going to choose one of their cards. They're going to put it face down, and then everybody's going to reveal what they chose. Then everybody's going to get to do the phase you chose, but since you're the one that chose it, you get the bonus. But what these are meant to be is that, okay, say, somebody chose research, somebody chose action, somebody chose production. Well, then you would come through here and you would flip these 3 tokens over for this particular round, and that's just to remind everybody these are the 3 phases we're going to go through. Well, when you're playing solo, you don't need these. You can remember. You know which one you chose, and then all you need a reminder of is which one the AI chose. And they're very easy to remember which order they are. So instead of using these out here, and also instead of having to get out an entirely another deck of cards, what I've been using is these to decide what the solo AI is going to do. I am in search of a nice baggie to put these in, and then I can just randomly draw them out. But for right now, I simply put them under the table in my hand. They shuffle really nicely because they're nice thick cardboard. I shuffle them up, I pull one out, and I say, okay, all right, the AI has chosen action, and I'm going to choose development. So I know that I'm going to go first with development, then I'm going to get to do an action phase. And each round, I'll set these up to the side so I can view which ones are still left, but I simply put these under the table each round, shuffle them up, and then pick another one. So that's just how I've been doing it, but these work really well for that. Keeps you from having to have 2 sets of these cards out, and gives you something to use these for. So the only thing that you don't get when you just use these tiles is an explanation of what happens on that phase, but after like 3 or 4 games, you're going to know exactly what these cards read. They're all the same. And you can just simply look through your cards. Say I picked construction and development came up. Well, if I don't have development memorized, for some reason I can just look at my card and be, oh, each player gets to play a green project card. Okay, bonus. So yeah, but after like your second game, you should have it understood. All right. So that is it. Technically, at this point, you can take a mulligan. You can discard some of your cards in hand to draw up new ones. We're not going to go through all of that in this particular video because next stages are simply to show you how to play the game. So each round is going to start off with each player choosing a particular phase that they want to make sure happens, and we're going to cover all of the phases here in a second. But they're going to take it, they're going to play it face down. Once everybody has played their phase card, everybody reveals it, and then you go through all of the chosen phases in order, and everybody gets to do the top ability, and anybody that chose that phase gets to gain the bonus action. In solo, you simply just choose yours, and like I said, you either have your deck of cards here that you shuffle up and randomly deal one, or you have these tiles that you shuffle up and randomly draw one. The trick for solo versus multiplayer is that a human player, whether you're playing a solo or a multiplayer, can play any card I want to, any phase card I want to in the next round, as long as it's not the one I just played. So I can choose from any number of these to have as my next phase choice. So I can say after development, I want to do production. As long as I don't choose development, it goes back in my hand. And then technically, in the third round, I could bring back production and I could play development right back again. The AI, however, is always going to go through all 5 phases once through, and then they're going to bring them all back and go through all 5 again. So when you play, say, development for the AI, it stays off to the side. I usually tuck them over here or something like that. And so then you know that these are the 4 actions they're going to choose from, and say they choose action next, and this is all random. And then they're going to choose research, and then they're going to choose production. So you know every 5 rounds against the AI, you know exactly what they're going to play, and you can predict. And you know every 4 rounds, you have a 50-50 chance of knowing what they're going to play, because they're always going to play through all 5 before bringing them all back and starting over anew. Every time that they bring back their tiles or reshuffle their cards, every 5 rounds, you're going to move this marker over. You're going to move it over 1, 2, 3, 4, and on the 5th time, you are, instead of randomly drawing these out, you're going to get to choose which order the AI plays through their phases, chooses their phases, and so you can plan accordingly. It's kind of like a little bonus for getting to the end. Now, there are some rules in the rulebook that say if you're playing on easy, every time you move this marker, you get to move one of these up 2, or medium, it's like you get to move them up 1, and hard, you don't move them at all. So you can review those rules in the rulebook, but just know that's how you keep track of time in the game, because solo is basically a race to see if you can put together the card combinations necessary to flip over all the ocean tiles, get the oxygen up, and then get the temperature up. In a multiplayer game, your game could last 2 hours if everybody was slow playing it and picking production and then development, or production and development. Whereas in the solo game, one of the nice things about the solo game is that it's quick. There is this time crunch on you. You basically have 5 rounds of the solo AI going through each phase once, and then you're done. So let's talk about the particular phases. So each round starts with you choosing a phase card, choosing a random phase card if you're playing solo, and then going through the phases in order. So you're always going, if development is one of the chosen phases, you're always going to do development first. If research is one of the chosen phases, you're always going to do research after everything else. It's always going to come last. So let's look at what the various phases are, and they're very simple. Development allows you to play a green card from your hand. You can see I've got green cards, I've got blue cards, and I've got red cards. All right, those are the only 3 color cards in the game. Green cards are going to be what you play to generally increase your engine. Terraforming Mars is an engine builder, and so basically what you want is to be pushing these along this track so that when you do a production phase, you get more resources into these pools here. So you can see, for example, this one, if I play this green card, it's going to give me 2 heat production. So I would simply move this over 2 more spaces upon playing this card. Green cards, you're going to just, if you have the mat, you're going to line them up here. Once you play them, you generally can just kind of stack them up just so you can see these tag icons here. All right, so those are green cards. If you happen to be the person that plays the development card on your turn, you get to play your green card for 3 credits less. So you just basically get a sale on your 1 green card, but you only ever get to play 1 green card. If everybody at the table chooses development as their phase, everybody basically just plays 1 green card, but everybody's also going to get the 3 credit bonus. All right. So, and especially if the AI, and remember this is random, but it happens more often than you think. If both of you choose development, you still only get to play 1 green card. You don't get to play a green card for this and then another green card here. It's basically everybody chose development, and during the development phase, each player plays 1 green card. All right, so that's development. Number 2 is construction. So construction is going to allow you to either play a blue card or a red card. So like I said, these are very straightforward, and you can see the color coding of the card even helps with that. So we already know how to get our green cards out. Now we know how to get our blue and our red cards out. Your red cards are going to be event cards. They're going to be generally, you play them, they'll have a lightning bolt symbol, which means an instant effect, but then they're done. Other than that, you just use them for tags and possibly end game victory points. Your blue cards, however, are going to give you actions. And they're going to give you these actions down here. It's going to tell you in print what those symbols mean. But essentially just know that by playing this down, anytime there's an action phase, you're going to get to go through all of your blue cards and do all of the actions that you have listed. So these obviously are going to kind of accompany your engine that you're building with your green cards. Your red cards are simply just usually big time events. All right, so if you happen to play the construction card, your bonus is to either draw a card into your hand or play a second blue or red card. You cannot play a green card. It has to be a blue or red card. And that's only if you played this card as your choice for the phase. All right, the third phase choice is action. Now, we just talked about actions. You get actions by playing blue cards. So if you don't have any blue cards, can you do any actions? Why, yes, you can. We'll get to that in a second. But for the most part, anytime anybody chooses the action phase, you get to go through all of your blue cards and do each action on all of your blue cards one time. In this instance, if we had played this blue card, we could discard up to 3 cards in hand and draw that many cards. So it's a way to go through your deck and see more cards. Let's see, this one would be I can spend 1 mega credit to gain 2 plants. Now, I can only do this once. I cannot do this as many times as I want. I can't do this as many times as I want. You get to do each action once. But if you played the action phase card, your bonus action is to activate 1. You get to choose 1, and you get to activate it a second time. So maybe I will spend 2 credits to gain 4 plants if I'm the one that played this card. Now, your blue cards are not the only places that you can do actions. There are standard actions which should look very familiar if you are a fan of Terraforming Mars. They're listed here at the bottom of your player board, but essentially you can spend 20 credits to gain a tree. In the main game, you would have put out a actual forest tile. In this game, you just get a forest tile that's going to give you one end game VP, but you also get to increase the oxygen. Same thing for 14 credits, you can increase the temperature. You can spend 8 plants to do the greenery action. You can spend 8 heat to raise the temperature, or you can pay 15 credits to flip an ocean tile. Remember, the name of the game is to increase the oxygen all the way to the end, increase temperature all the way in, and flip over all the ocean tiles. In solo, it's a race. You have to do it in 25 rounds or less. In multiplayer game, that simply just signifies the end of the game. Then you count up points. Whoever has the highest number of points wins. But anytime that anybody plays the action phase, you may go through all of your blue cards once, unless you get the unless you're the one that has the bonus. But you can do any of these actions any number of times as long as you can pay for them. So if you happen to have 24 heat on your board, you can raise the temperature 3 times. Now, there is a little caveat to keeping people from hoarding cubes on their board. If you have enough heat and or plants to complete one of these 2 actions here, you have to do it when the action phase is triggered. So if I have 24 heat here and nobody's played an action card in 4 rounds, I'm fine. I'm not breaking any rules. But as soon as someone plays the action card, I have to spend my heat to raise the temperature. I cannot hoard my heat and I cannot hoard my plants. All right, so that was phase number 3. Phase number 4 is pretty straightforward. It is the production phase. So that's when you're simply going to go down the left side of your board here and you're going to gain heat. You're going to gain plants. based on how well you have built up your engine using your green cards. The better engine you have, the more profitable your production phase is going to be. And similar to the main or the original Terraforming Mars game, your credit production is your terraforming rating plus wherever you have increased on this track over here. And if you happen to be the one to play the production card, you get a bonus for credits. So how do you increase your terraforming rating? Well, that's very simple. Every time you increase oxygen, every time you increase heat, or every time you flip over an ocean tile, you bump up your terraforming rating one time for each time you do something. There are also other card effects that tell you to bump up or reduce your terraforming rating, but for the most part, every time you advance Mars in the right direction, you get to bump up your terraforming rating, which means that during the production phase, you get that much more money, that much more credits into your bank. These two spots down here, so this spot is credits. The further along you push this on the track, the more credits you'll get during the production phase. This track is actually cards. So this did not exist in the original Terraforming Mars, but you can actually increase your card production so that during the production phase, you actually get to draw cards. This one is heat, this one is plants, and these two are steel and titanium. And what they do is that when you are building cards with the proper symbols, for example, here you can see the construction symbol, and here's the, I forget what this is called, but these two symbols, if you are building a card with this symbol and you have advanced your steel along this track, you can see that it's -2 per steel symbol. So in this case, I would be -6. If I was here and I was building this card, this would be 4 times 3 is 12, so 30 minus 12 to build this card. It's basically a discount for building these cards with these particular tags on them. All right, and the very last phase that you can do is research phase. This is essentially how the main way you get more cards into your hand to either be able to discard for credits or spend during the other phases. So anytime somebody plays the research phase, all players draw 2 cards and choose one to keep, discarding the other. If you played the bonus, if you played the card and are getting the bonus, you actually draw 5 cards and keep 2. So here is 2 and keep 1. Here is an additional 3 and keep 1. So essentially, if you're the one that chose research, you get to draw 5 cards and keep 2. At any point in the game, you can discard, give up any card in your hand for 3 credits. Just keep that in mind, that you always want to take cards when you have the opportunity to get cards. Even if you draw 2 and neither one of them you're never going to play, always keep the one. You can immediately turn around and turn it back in for 3 credits. Those are 3 credits you're probably going to need later on in the game. So that is it. That's basically all you need to know to play Terraforming Mars. Now the strategy comes from how effectively can you build your engine, that during the production phase you are getting the necessary resources to push Mars in the correct tracks and get to where you need to be in solo mode in 25 rounds or less. There are a lot, more than I can cover in topics of combos and things, and way cards can play off of each other. That is what's so amazing about the game, and those are the things you need to just experience on your own. One thing that I realized I kind of skipped over is that anytime you produce greenery and you bump up the oxygen, you also get one of these tiles here, which simply replaces you putting a greenery tile out on the board. But these are each worth a single victory point at the end of the game. And if you happen to have 5 on your board, you store them over here. You can swap them out for a 5 single. That's the only reason these are in the game, is to simply keep track of. It's an additional way to get victory points at the end of the game. So technically the solo mode is in a way a beat your own score mode, but just terraforming Mars making it so you can count your score is enough of a challenge on its own that I really don't feel like keeping up with my score is the name of the game. I feel like Terraforming Mars is the name of the game. If I do happen to do it, which I don't every time, then I can keep up with my stats, on BGG or whatever, but it's really just kind of a bonus. So, again, deciding which phase to play in conjunction with knowing that the solo AI is going to choose a random phase of its 5, and then building your engine, playing the cards out, having them combo off of each other, and getting to the point where you can push Mars to the proper levels. That's Terraforming Mars. Terraforming Mars Ares Expedition just happens to do the same stuff in this more condensed, almost all card version of the game. The trick is in original Terraforming Mars, you basically got to do all of these actions every single round. You gained cards every single round, and then you chose which ones you wanted to spend money on. You gained production every single round. You were able to take as many actions as you wanted to every single round, as long as you could pay for them, and you could play as many cards as you wanted every single round. But the trick was that there's a lot more to do, and your credits and your resources were at just as much of a premium now, but that scaled with being able to do. The trick with Ares Expedition is that you're trying to do essentially the same thing, but you're being limited to only being able to do, in the solo game, 2 phases per round as opposed to all of the phases. So they've broken the phases down and kind of handcuffed you into choosing, well, what do you really want to do this round? Do you just want to produce? And then what's the AI going to randomly give you? So that's really the biggest difference here. But little spoiler right now, thus far I'm really enjoying the ease of play and the speed of play, while still getting that engine building card comboing effects that I loved so much about Terraforming Mars. So that is how to set up, that is how to play Terraforming Mars. In our next video, we're going to go through a full playthrough of how to play Terraforming Mars Ares Expedition solo. So keep an eye out for that. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up. And if you would like to see more content, including the solo playthrough of Terraforming Mars Ares Expedition, please consider subscribing to the channel, hit that bell icon. And once again, thanks for watching. Have a great night.